Good morning. My name is Zara Najaf, and my question today is, to what extent do video games affect the intellectual augmentation of adolescents? Throughout the last decade, there has been considerable advancement in technology, in particular video games. According to Kurt Swire, professor in the Department of Informatics and former director of the Games Learning and Society Initiative at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, he states that video games are not only a powerful force in the economic and entertainment industry, but rather as a whole in the American cultural landscape. From his article, Video Games and Education, Kurt Swire addresses the issues of video games and their universal impact on the educational system. Connecting with the findings of Swire, Margaret E. Gredler, who has a PhD and is a professor of educational psychology and research at the University of South Carolina, through her article, Educational Games and Simulations, she talks about the different types of simulations of video games that can enhance educational development in schools. From this question rose, to what extent do video games affect the intellectual augmentation of adolescents? In light of recent years, there has been correlation of video games and the improvement of certain neurological aspects in the brain. According to Doug Hyun Han, who has a PhD in psychiatry at the University of Chung-Ang, and Perry F. Renshaw, who is a professor of psychiatry at the Harvard Medical School, through extensive research, they have discovered that video games improve aspects such as visuospatial capacity, visual acuity, and task switching. Abilities such as these are lacking in an adolescent's mind, especially since they are still growing. Video games help strengthen such skills as object perception, visual sharpness, and multitasking for use in the future in the adolescent's adulthood. While some say that video games affect the brain positively, this isn't always the case. Susan Greenfield, who's a neuroscientist at Lincoln College in Oxford, argues that long exposure to screens has led to brain disconnection. This is just a temporary state. According to Adam Labelle, who has a PhD in gaming research at the University of Michigan, he expands on the fact that these spatial skills derived from video games overrule the temporary state of disconnection by the gain of long-term spatial skills. And according to this graph, in background one, these gamers have no training in video games, and then when they get extensive training, their visuospatial scores rise up by around 5%. And non-gamers who have no background only rises by 10%, but when through extensive video game training, their scores rise up by 17%. This was according to a study conducted at Brown University. Finally, after taking the scientific approach socially, just as video games allow one to be interactive, video games also educate adolescents. Another form of development arises from the sociological aspect. An image of a lonely person is always conjured when speaking about video games. However, this is not the case. Many video games are known to have massive multiplayer online communities, such as the one in this graph, where there's certain types of groups, and each group has different amounts of players who have to interact together to achieve one goal. Through this, according to Helen Cole, who has a BCS in psychology, and Marty Griffiths, director of the International Gaming Research Unit, multiplayer online video games encourage players to cooperate together and work as a team. It teaches dependency and trust in one another to beat the game. Throughout the goal of beating a game, players learn social behaviors such as interactivity, teamwork, and trust. In some cases, that is the truth. But according to Dustin L. Redman, who has a master's in human development and family studies, an analysis was conducted to see whether or not video games affect communication between real-life people such as family members and friends. He found that there was no significance or correlation between these two. Finally, after taking the scientific and social approach, there lies one more approach yet to be discussed: education. According to Kurt Swire, in his article "Video Games and the Future of Learning," he talks about ways that video games can be implemented to teach students about career paths. From their article, Kurt Squire and William Schaffer, who's a professor of learning science, and James P., who's a software management consultant, video games offer interactivity to the real world by teaching adolescents about real jobs. For example, a 16-year-old girl or boy from Korea can easily become an international financier and learn about a position that he or she could possibly consider as a career path in the video games. Just from a video game simulation, these adolescents and players can learn more about career paths they can choose in the future. However, according to Kurt Squire, once again, who's a professor in the Department of Informatics and former director of the Games Learning Society Initiative at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, he says that many of these video game and simulations are lacking in depth as to whether or not they fully portray the careers. However, according to However, this is not the case. By game developers just learning how and researching how to form these games and simulations, they can learn more about ways to implement the full capacity of an accurate career path. Implications. In conclusion, although video games do positively affect many of these programs that simulate real jobs require an understanding of the job itself. As I stated before, in the educational perspective, these games are lacking in career accuracy. But game developers can, to solve this problem, game developers can research and learn more about their careers in order to fully produce an accurate simulation. Also, video games are known to have disconnection in brain waves. To solve this problem, the video game player can easily disconnect himself for a few hours and regain that